Hello and welcome to Byjus Exam Prep IAS. Before we start with our today's analysis, we have a gentle reminder. Byjus Exam Prep IAS is now officially on Telegram. What is that you have to do? Follow the link given in the description box or scan this QR code. This will take you officially to our Telegram channel. Join the channel so that you get all the current affairs related updates. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says Greyhounds in search of home. Let us try and understand what is this article all about. The article here is speaking about one of the commando elite force happens to be Greyhound, which is functioning in the state of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. Why was it created? That was because to kill the Maoist insurgency that was being perpetuated in the state of Andhra Pradesh back in the year 1967. In the 1967, the Maoist movement in Andhra Pradesh began with the Srikakulam uprising in 1967. Over a period of time, this was suppressed, but then it continued to persist in the state of Andhra Pradesh. In order to make sure that this Maoist insurgency in the state of Andhra Pradesh is completely eliminated, the Greyhounds force was formed in 1989 by KS Vyas, an IPS officer, to combat the growing Maoist threat in Andhra Pradesh. So what exactly was happening? During 1967, there was Maoist infiltration that was happening in the state of Andhra Pradesh. Naxalite activities were increasing in this particular period. They tried to bring it down. They were able to control it for a very brief period of time. Despite controlling it, the Naxalite activities increased over a period of time. So what they felt was we required a specialization organization to combat the Maoist operations. So they created a force. This elite commando force is what is called as the Greyhound. So Greyhound happens to be one of the force which was created to combat Naxalite activities in the state of Andhra Pradesh. It is considered the best anti-Naxalite force in the country. How do they operate? The force is also known for its guerrilla approach and its functioning in the field, which is near similar to that of the Maoists. There is a saying that if you have to find out what a thief does, you have to become a thief in your thought process. Similar was the agenda when it comes to this Greyhound. What exactly happened? The Maoists do not have the potential to come and take on the police or the armed forces directly. Why? Because they have minuscule numbers, and at the same time they do not have the arms and ammunitions as well. They would not be in a position to take upon the state directly. So what do? They operate in a guerrilla warfare pattern. They hide in the trees. They operate in the remote heartlands as well, which the police officers may not know. Because they operate in the guerrilla warfare, they had an advantage against the state. So what these people decided is that if we have to hit the Naxalite operations in that particular area, we have to think like the Naxalites. We have to operate like the Naxalites. We have to enter into the mode of guerrilla warfare. So if we are able to enter into the mode of guerrilla warfare, we would be able to bring an end to the Naxalite operations in this particular state. So what did they do? They felt that in order to beat the Naxalites in their own game, we have to adapt this process called as the guerrilla warfare. The force is known for the guerrilla approach. So what did they do? They had rigorous training, they had strict day-to-day combat regime as well, and this particular force was known for the guerrilla warfare. So traditionally, they were working on a police force. The police was not able to bring down the Naxalite activities in this particular region, and as a result, they felt that they have to go by the thought process of the Maoists, similar to the way that they operate, and ultimately bring an end to the Maoist or the Naxalite operations in the state of Andhra Pradesh. So how does they work? Basically, you have the police forces. So from the police forces, what they did is recruited the best among the police forces. So in the state of Andhra Pradesh back during the 1989 and after that as well, whoever were best in the police, they were recruited into this Greyhounds. So recruited at an early age, these Greyhounds serve for about approximately 15 years, and ultimately, since they would not have the physical strength after serving for 15 years, they would ultimately be posted back to the police operations. So those who are physically strong, who would be able to take on, who are ready to take the challenges of the Maoist operations, were recruited trained with rigorous operations, and ultimately they were posted in all these Naxalite hit heartlands. They were specifically trained for the deep forest pursuit and combat. These Greyhound commandos are expected to trek up to 20 to 30 kilometers in the hilly jungle terrain for a single operation, and most of these people do not have proper food to eat. That is because in case they go on to cook in the forest areas, they have to lit the fire, and these Naxalites would come to know that there are people living in this particular area. So they basically live on dry fruits and other rations which they can consume directly because they cannot engage in cooking. Such is the operations that they conduct in order to eliminate the Maoist operations, Naxalite operations in the state of Andhra Pradesh. So what we understand is that this Greyhound is an elite force that was created in the state of Andhra Pradesh to combat the Naxalite operations in the state of Andhra Pradesh. Once this particular process was adopted, they were able to hit the Maoist in their own game. They were able to adapt to the guerrilla warfare. They saw the success as well. The number of deaths started increasing, and most of the operations were ultimately coming down. This meant that this entire exercise and creation of this elite force called as Greyhound has become a successful one. Because it became a successful one, many other states also started taking it as an example. Let's take some of the example. It inspired the creation of other similar forces to fight the Maoists. Odisha developed the Special Operations Group, Maharashtra the C60, West Bengal the Counter-Insurgency Force. Experts also say the Cobra Battalion of the Central Reserve Police Force, which is engaged in anti-Maoist operations in Chhattisgarh, is also fashioned on the lines of the Greyhounds. So once it was successful, many other states started adapting this particular process of the guerrilla warfare. But what is the issue right now? We know for the fact that in the year 2014, the United State of Andhra Pradesh was bifurcated into Telangana as well as Andhra Pradesh. So what did the government decide? The central government along with the state governments also decided that men as well as the power, the equipment will have to be equally divided between both the states. Both the training centers of Greyhounds, Premavatipet and Gandhipet, were located in Hyderabad, and so the act specified that Andhra Pradesh would have to set up its own base and training center. In fact, in 2014, the Union Ministry of Home Affairs sanctioned about 209 crore for setting it up. Of this, about 9 crore was immediately released. 8 years have passed, but Andhra Pradesh still does not have a training center for the force. The 9 crore remains untouched as well. We have the state government, which has currently identified about 385 acres of land at Jagannathapuram, village of Chandaka Panchayat of Anandapuram Mandal in Vishakhapatnam for this particular purpose. However, the government has earmarked about 9 crores, but the people are expecting more from the government. There have been ghost accounts that have been included as well, because government, using the principle or doctrine of eminent domain, has acquired certain lands. There were people who are supposed to have been compensated as well, but more people have been included as part of the ghost accounts. This has increased the number from about 9 crore to about compensation to be paid to about 22 crores, which is why the state government is not able to come up with this particular mechanism of establishing the infrastructure and the building for the Greyhounds. In fact, we have the senior officers who have identified land is the perfect to convert it into a training center, come operational base. If required, some part of the land can also be earmarked as the training center for Octopus. And what is this Octopus? It is the Organization for Counter-Terrorist Operations, another elite counter-terrorism unit of the Andhra Pradesh Police, they say, but no one knows when this will happen. So they're yet not sure when the infrastructure will come into picture and when the Greyhounds will have their own infrastructure to ensure that their training happens on an optimum level. As of now, this is the major issue. Because the Greyhounds do not have the infrastructure, there might be issues for the Naxalite operations to be conducted in the state of Andhra Pradesh, is what is this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article says the crisis of apple farmers. Let us try and understand what what is this article all about? The article here is speaking about agitation being conducted by the farmers organizations as well as the apple farmers in the state of Himachal Pradesh. Why is this happening? To understand this, we have to understand the historical background. In the 1970s and the 1980s, the state provided a lot of support to apple production in Himachal Pradesh. What did it include? It set up nurseries and gave plants to farmers on a large scale, offered transport subsidy on cartons, provided heavy concession on tools, and offered special monetary help for the poor and Dalits to plant apple orchards among other initiatives. Further, the government also introduced the land reforms as well. Land reforms were widely implemented across the state, and at the same time, not many people were left without the land. Even before statehood was granted, land was distributed through Narutor, which is nothing but breaking of the new land. Any land tilted was eventually transferred to those tilling them through successive land settlements, and laws in the state also restrict the transfer of land in favor of a person who is not an agriculturist of Himachal Pradesh. So what they came up with is land reforms, that if a person is not located in the state of Himachal Pradesh and if he is not an agriculturist, they also prevented transfer of land from one person to another person. Such were the laws that were enacted by the Himachal Pradesh government back then in order to bring justice to the farmers in that particular society. Added to it, there were also peasant movements as well. When you consider the 1980s as well as the 90s as well, there were large scale protests that were conducted by the peasants. These peasant movements were also successful in raising the prices of the apple. Now, what is happening? Earlier, what we had is a stable price for the apple farmers, but now they are not able to reap the benefits of it. They are not able to take the advantage of it, and they are not getting the prices required for their apples. What is the root cause of it? That is because of the rising fragmentation of the land. Many people before had huge swathes of land. Now this huge swathes of land is fragmented. So one share is given to one person, other share is given to other person. So there is large scale fragmentation of the land, and there is low productivity as well, and there is withdrawal of the state support. We did discuss during the 1970s and the 80s, what we had was all these support that was provided by the state government, but now we do not have such a support given by the state. Added to it, agriculture business in itself has become unsustainable as well. The cost of production of all the agricultural items have increased substantially, and at the same time there have been fragmentation of the land, which is leading to skyrocketing prices even for the farmers. Since they are not able to generate the profits, they are not getting the required prices for their apples. This is ultimately leading to the crisis, and they are not getting enough prices for their apples, says this article. So this article currently goes on to say that the existing problem in the state of Himachal Pradesh is primarily because of two issues. One, the first is the increasing cost of the production. What do we mean by it? In case the farmer have to get a yield, let's say about 1 ton or 2 ton, 100 tons, hypothetical example, what they require is the fertilizers. Why? Because these fertilizers are required for the growth crop, and at the same time what they also require is the insecticides as well, because the input cost of the fertilizers, insecticides and fungicides have risen in the last decade by more than 300% according to some estimates, which is why they are not able to generate the profits. Earlier in 1970s and 80s, you had the state support, so they did not feel the pinch of it. Now the state support has been gradually withdrawn, and at the same time they have a lot of input costs that they have to bear, so the profits that they are generating has comparatively reduced. Added to it, the cost of the apple cartons and trays and packaging have further increased as well. In the last decade or so, the cost of a carton, for instance, has risen from about 30 to about 130. So what we have is the cartons, trays and packaging, which have also increased, and this ultimately means they have to bear more costs on the input front. The second and immediate trigger for the agitation was the increase in the goods and services tax on the cartons from 12 to 18%. We know for the fact that the government of India came up with three important farm laws. These farm laws were also withdrawn as well. Now what has the government done in the state of Himachal Pradesh? They basically believe you have the middlemen who are taking a lot of money. So if there is an imposition of taxation, that is GST, which is increased from 12 to 18%, there will be no middlemen. So what the farmers can do is they can directly sell it in the market, or they can also send it to the corporates as well. So if they sell it in the market, they would be able to get more money. So there'll be no middleman as well. The middleman is eliminated. So farmers would be able to sell directly into the market, and at the same time these farmers will also get much better price. This is one idea. The other idea is also that the farmers would be able to directly speak up to the corporates, and these corporates will pay them on a timely basis. But now the problem is, yes, they can deal with the corporates as well, but when it comes to the corporates, they have huge money power, they have financial backing as well. So it is they who decide what amount they have to pay to the farmers, and the farmers will not have any say in such an agreement or a contract. And there is another issue as well. When they sell it in the open market, they would be able to sell all types of apples irrespective of the quality and the breed of the apple. But when it comes to selling it to the corporates select only high quality ones. They would not select the low quality ones. But in the open market, they would be able to sell all types of apples. This also happens to be another major impediment, that they are not able to sell, and as a result what we have is a pricing issue for the farmers in the state of Himachal Pradesh. If you consider the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, what we have is a minimum rate for procurement. There is no such law which is present in the state of Himachal Pradesh. The government also does not seem to be prepared to bring any such law in the state of Himachal Pradesh. So this article currently goes on to say what we require is a regulator. What is required is an independent body that is duly supported and trusted by the farmers. Such a body should be a multi-stakeholder one. It should have representatives of apple owners, market players, commission agents, and the government. It is this particular body which has to decide what should be the GST rate that should be imposed, and this must be a statutory body that is also given the task of conducting research in the apple economy. So basically, as of now, it is imposed on a discretionary basis. It is imposed on the whims and fancies of the government, but this has to be regulated, for which what we require is a body, and this body should have all the stakeholders. They should decide what is the taxation that should be imposed. The big growers and the rich farmers would now be able to sustain the tempo even if they are not able to get enough prices, but it is the small and the marginal apple growers who will be impacted because of such an ecosystem that is created. So basically, this article goes on to say that what we require is an independent body. This independent body should be a multi-stakeholder one. They should be doing all the research with respect to the apple economy, and that should be taken and imposed by the government, says this article. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says India-Bangladesh ties a model for bilateral cooperation. We have been discussing about this article for the past 1 week. We did also discuss about the agreement signed between India and Bangladesh. This article here is speaking about 4 important issues that have to be addressed to make sure that India and Bangladesh relationship is further enhanced. What are the 4 points of issue? First, the continued presence of 1.1 million Rohingyas who fled from Myanmar in 2017 has created enormous pressure on the economy and social harmony of Bangladesh. When we look at the Rohingyas, there have been large number of Rohingyas who are currently present in the state of Bangladesh. These people have been protected by Bangladesh, but Bangladesh economy is also not doing good as well. Despite it, it is taking as much as possible. It is also helping these people as well. So one of the requirements that Bangladesh had for India is that they also help Bangladesh in assisting so that their pressure on the Rohingyas will be comparatively reduced over a period of time. So they wanted India to accept few people. They also wanted India to take care of these Rohingyas for a considerable period of time, and after that want them to speak to Myanmar as well and ensure that these Rohingyas go back to their country, and when they go back they are also safeguarded as well. So the major issue is one to do with the Rohingyas, where Bangladesh is seeking the help of India for the safety of these Rohingyas. Rohingyas. Second, the absence of agreement on sharing the Teesta's water due to the West Bengal's refusal to relent, and the broader issue of joint management of 54 common rivers have been the constant grievances. So when we speak about Teesta issue, this has been persisting between India and Bangladesh ever since the year 2011, and it continues to be present as well. But one of the advantages that we have had this time is that we have come up with an agreement with respect to the Kushiara River, and in the near future what we have to settle is the Teesta water dispute, says this article. Third, India's sensitivity to growing cooperation between Dhaka and Beijing rankles the authorities in Bangladesh. We know for the fact we have something called as a string of pearls. What does it mean? It means you have Sri Lanka at the southern part of India, you have Bangladesh to the eastern side, you have Pakistan on the western side, and you also have Bhutan in the northern front. So when we look at what is a string of pearls, we have China, which is trying to cover India on all aspects. It has good all-weather friendship with Pakistan. It is also given a lot of loans to Sri Lanka as well. It is also in good terms with Bangladesh as well. And if China is also part of all its activities in Bangladesh, we have one of the important corridors in the northeastern part, which is called as the Siliguri corridor. It is this Siliguri corridor which will connect us to the northeast part of India, and this happens to be the only land route from the mainland India to the northeastern part of India. And if Bangladesh has all types of activities with China in the near future, China may block it, and ultimately this can have disastrous consequences for India. So India has a security issue if more activities of China happens in Bangladesh. So this also have to be sorted between India and Bangladesh in the near future is another issue. Four, we have the Prime Minister of Bangladesh who considered that despite her government's secular policies, incidents against the Hindu minority have occurred, but her government has acted against the miscreants. So she goes on to say that there have been ample examples where some of the Hindu minorities have been hit in Bangladesh, but in all these cases, whoever has conducted such an activity, they have been thrown behind bars. So she is asking that there are similar examples in India, so she is asking them to take care of the minorities in India. So this article is all speaking about some of the issues between India and Bangladesh. So in the near future, if India and Bangladesh relationship has to be enhanced, all these issues will have to be sorted out, is what is this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article says we need civil society engagement in Kashmir. The article here is speaking about what measures have to be taken in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. We know for the fact that in 1990s, a large-scale militant activity happened in the then state of Jammu and Kashmir. As a result, number of Pandits moved from Jammu and Kashmir to different parts of India. In order to bring them back to Jammu and Kashmir, we have the Government of India which initiated Prime Minister's Return and Rehabilitation of Kashmir Migrant Scheme. This basically meant that you had two kinds of people. One, we had Pandits who moved out of Jammu and Kashmir, who are called as the migrant Pandits. Then you also had Pandits who stayed back in Jammu and Kashmir, who are called as the non-migrant Pandits. And these jobs that were provided by the government were mostly in the teaching sector, but those migrants who came back to Jammu and Kashmir were actually safeguarded in one of the highly security enclave. But if it is to do with the teaching profession, they cannot stay in that particular secured area. They have to come out of that particular area. So in that case, there might be militancy issues. In that case, there can be turmoil as well. In that case, there can also be killings as well. So the author says that the government cannot always keep up to the security front, but what it has to do is increase on the interpersonal skills between the people. So what is the author asking? The author is asking that instead of the top-down approach that is currently being followed, what we require is the bottom-up approach. This bottom-up approach basically means that there are communities who are present in the Jammu and Kashmir. These communities should not put the blame game. They should not point fingers at one another. Instead, what we require is an acceptance of all the issues that is existing in Jammu and Kashmir, and ultimately you require public intellectuals, other influential people from their communities to ensure that such disturbances do not occur. So these intellectuals will have to speak up to their own people, influence their people, and allow all communities to speak to each other so that there is dialogue between them. So the top-down approach, that only government imposing things or government ensuring that security will not work, what we require is dialogue between the communities. So influential people, intellectual people will have to become part of it. So take up the bottom up approach, ensure that they all speak to each other, do not blame each other, instead sort out the differences between each other, is what is this article in nutshell. Now let's look into the mains practice questions. Explain with relevant examples how elite forces in states have been able to crack down on Naxal activities. Next question. Farmers organizations and apple growers are holding protests in the state of Himachal Pradesh. Discuss the possible reasons and suggest corrective measures. So please write all your answers on the comment section, peer review, and do give positive feedback to your friends' answers. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.